So just to wrap up my rant about Mike Pence, this, again, from the Center for American Progress's blog, The Myth of Mike Pence is the title of the piece over at thinkprogress.org. Last year, the governor signed into law the Religious Freedom Restoration Act in Indiana, which gave businesses, employees, and even healthcare providers the green light to refuse service to LGBT people. He was a leading purveyor of misinformation about the Iraq War in September of 2002 on CNN. Now, this was, as we were debating going to war. So this was part of the lying campaign of the Bush administration, the misinformation campaign to sell the war. On CNN, he said, quote, "There's overwhelming evidence, circumstantial and otherwise, to suggest a connection between Iraq and al-Qaeda." Actually, the opposite was true. Saddam Hussein hated al-Qaeda. He saw them as a threat to his power and his country. And, if he found anybody from al-Qaeda inside Iraq, he would imprison them or kill them. He was not a nice man, and he didn't like al-Qaeda. But Pence lied about that. In an editorial board interview with the local Palladium item this is a local newspaper in Richmond, Indiana that month, he went further. He said, "There's an enormous amount of evidence that Saddam has weapons of mass destruction, is doing his best to develop more lethal weapons and funds and supports terrorism." Well, the only part of that has any faint little bit of truth is the funds and supports terrorism, and that was Saddam Hussein sending money to the families of people who had killed Israelis. Palestinians who had the families of Palestinians who had engaged in attacks against Israelis. But outside of that, everything else was just a plain old flat out wrong. Whether he realized it was a lie or not, he certainly was part of that campaign. But the stuff about taking money from the Geo Group and then increasing mandatory minimums and harsher penalties for low-level drug users, that's obscene in my mind. And then in 2001, Pence openly mocked climate science, calling it a myth. In Global Warming, Pence wrote, "The environmental movement has found a new chant for their latest Chicken Little attempt to raise taxes and grow centralized government power." And then he goes on to just a flat-out lie. This is why this guy's the perfect vice president for Donald Trump, who lies without, with no compunction whatsoever. Donald Trump is one of the smoothest liars I've ever seen. Well, apparently so is Mike Pence. He said, "Most climatologists agree at best global warming is a theory about future climatic conditions and cannot be proven based upon the historic record. Greenhouse gases are mostly the result of volcanoes, hurricanes, and underwater geologic displacements." Right. He has aggressively gone after Planned Parenthood. Here's a very anti-women's rights guy. He refers to Planned Parenthood as big abortion, smearing the Women's Health Service organization as some sort of industrial profit seeker. And while Republicans wouldn't actually manage to shut the government down over Planned Parenthood funding and abortion policy until 2013, Pence pioneered the idea in 2011 when he was in the House of Representatives and brought the government within 11 hours of lights out over his adamance about the group, which again stemmed from totally fake videos that had already been disproven. And then to make it really weird, he tried to create a state-controlled media outlet in Indiana. It was going to be called Just In, as in Indiana, IN. And it would basically be a state-run, taxpayer-funded news outlet that would have dispersed pre-written news stories. Right. I think they used to do that in the Soviet Union. It's like, you expect that, I suppose, out of North Korea. But Mike Pence in Indiana, it's bizarre.
To watch more clips from our programs, hit the Watch More Videos button over here. And please be sure to hit the handy-dandy subscribe button so you'll always be up to date. Tag, you're it.